So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Global Experts Interview Series brought to you by 50 Plus Assist and Elderly Care India. This series brings together leaders, innovators, practitioners from around the world for transforming the elder care industry and the ecosystem in itself. Today, I have a truly inspiring topic, something that I've been very anxiously waiting about the intergenerational practice in elder care. So, we have thought about this. A lot of people who are working in elder care have felt the need that how can children and older adults interact regularly? How can they be together? And for that, we have one of the most inspiring examples, Apples and Honey Nightingale, an intergenerationally nursery located inside a care home in UK. And for to talk about more about this program, how it works, and everything else, with us we have our wonderful Dr. Judith, co-founder of Apple Honey Nightingale and co-founder of Intergenerational Gen All. So, absolute pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Judith. Baton on to you, Pankaj.
Thank you, Dr. Mrigna, and welcome, Judith. It's a pleasure to have you on our podcast. As Dr. Mrigna said, intergenerational programs is something which is much needed in today's world, specifically the way we are progressing and what you have done with Apples and Honey Nightingale of setting up you are being as of setting up the program and the facility as part of a care home. That is something which is very, very unique. And I think when you realize that there is a need for training, and then you set up the education and the training center for them. We look forward to a lot of learning from what you have seen in the past. So welcome,
Thank you very
Dr.
much. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be welcomed and to be invited to share something I'm so passionate about. We live in such a fragmented world. Every community that I know of has got issues around ageism, around stereotyping of different peoples from different generations. With globalization, the extended family has become also as a thing of the past for some cultures and is something that others are more concerned about. The fact that we have an aging community with healthcare being so good, so many medicines being created and invented to help us to live longer. But the important thing is not just living longer, it's living better for longer. And we can't do that if we are in silos. We have to come together and we have to live together as a community, because the young can learn from our older generations, and from those who have lived experiences, they can share those experiences and help people to have a sense of belonging and knowing where they are in the cycle of life and in the history of the world.
That's in fact wonderful idea to begin the podcast with. So, how do you define intergenerational practice, particularly when we talk in context of aged care sector? And my follow-up question to you, this would be that personally, what is that you have observed in both generations while interacting with them that becomes part of the daily lives?
Yeah. A big question. I'm going to read you a quote. This is the definition that is universally accepted as a good definition of intergenerational practice. It was written in 2001 by Alan Hatton-Yeo from the Beth Johnson Foundation. And this definition is that intergenerational practice aims to bring together people together in purposeful, mutually beneficial activities which promote greater understanding and respect between generations and contributes to building more cohesive communities. Intergenerational practice is inclusive, building on the positive resources that the young and old have to offer each other and those around them. So it's not that you're using one generation to stimulate or as an entertainment for another. And it's not that there's one should be a tool. Everything should be of mutual benefit. And when you look at the needs of different generations, there are so many things that are the same, that are compatible. I'm very fortunate within Apples and Honey Nightingale that being co-located in the care home, our early years children benefit from the resources of the care home, the therapist department, all the activities that they may be doing that are beneficial to maintain the skills and the strengths and the aptitudes of their grand friends, as we call them, of their residents. But if we look at this, those very same skills, actions, strengths, tools that are needed to be maintained for our older generation are the very ones that we need to develop in our younger generation. So why can't we actually do those exercises together? Why can't we share the same stories? Why can't we share the same activities? Since we're actually going to do this, and those conversations that we build together create relationship and give purpose. And we're actually facilitating each other. The children can help their older friends, and our residents, our grand friends, can share their learning and their experiences and their knowledge with the younger ones.
Indeed, very exciting, very interesting to see and understand that how this intergenerational exchange can work, especially the grand friends. that hit me long. What do you think, Pankaj?
Definitely, this is a field which is growing. And when I saw Judith's profile and the apple and honey nightingale kind of a concept, so my first question was, how did this name come up, number one? And what are the kind of activities which you actually do? Because here there is a very, very young population at the nursery level, and over here you have the super seniors. So how do you really coordinate, and how does it function?
Oh, it's fantastic. I have to say that it's been even better than I could have hoped for. It's wonderful to see that sense of purpose that we have managed to give to our grand friends, who often have felt like they were past their youthfulness. Many people having to go into a care home, which isn't their first choice, but because they are not able to be independent at home any longer, feel somehow they've been put out of society, out of community. But here they are creating community, a new community, which we can open out to the wider world. But back to your original question, it is a bit of a mouthful, our name, and it doesn't really share exactly what we do. But we have it because back in 1991, I opened a small early years setting. In 1991, I opened a small early years setting, Jewish faith-based, so that the activities we were doing were planned around the cycle of the Jewish year, but always open to everybody from any faith and culture. And as part of that program, for me, it felt that if you are going to give a holistic education to children when they're growing up, they need to experience all the stages of life. It's not enough to teach them, help them to jump and to run and to do growth and small motor skills and literacy and communication and listening and numbers. You really need to know people, and you need to have that sense of belonging and knowing where you are in time and space. And we were the only Jewish early years setting in South London. There was only one Jewish care home in South London. So it was obvious that that would be a match, that we would come together. And that was Nightingale House. Fast forward, 25 years or so, no, 15 years or so, I should say. Well, actually 25 years later. And and I had approached Nightingale because I had been watching those relationships grow, We would come initially with parents as well. There were many international families. The world was a very different place. Many people went to only sessional nurseries as opposed to full daycare. And the parents were involved because sometimes it was more common for only one parent to be working. And we could see the relationships that were growing between the parents and the residents at the home, not just the children and the residents at the home. And there's a beautiful story about one little girl who turned up a little bit late for one of our activities at the care home with her mother. And she gravitated towards one of the residents, and they were busy chatting and doing things together. And the following week, I got a little envelope which said, "To little Evie." And so I handed it to her mother, and when she opened it, the envelope said, "To little Evie, who visited me last week, this is a picture of me when I was little Evie.
Wow,
And it was so nice to see you, and I hope you'll come and visit me again." And it turned out that this lady, who had been a little Evie in Germany and had come over to England in the war in the Kindertransport, had the same surname as well as first name as the little girl who'd visited her, who was actually an American family who were with us only for a few years. And that link, that connection, and that's when I just went to the care home and I said, "Please, can we not be situated in your beautiful grounds and see each other every day?" And little Evie continued to visit with her mother and Eve until the family relocated back to America. And that relationship was so strong. So we were Apples and Honey Nursery. We were moving into Nightingale House. So our name became Apples and Honey Nightingale. And it is way too long, but we have it.
Well, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful name, and that's what catches the eyes and ears, because it's such a sweet word that you can actually relate to, and you want to know more about it.
May I just butt in a minute, because you talked about the fact that we are only, we are very young with really very old. I'm being very blunt, because Nightingale House is a centre of excellence for dementia care and end-of-life care. It is very much for seniors, if I can put it that way. But we have also an after-school club that comes once a week from a local primary school for 8 to 11-year-olds. And we ask them for some of their thoughts. Just 2 weeks ago, we were asking them, after one of our sessions, they come every week, and one child said, "The grandfriends are so sweet, they're like apples and honey."
Oh, that is so cute. That is so adorable. And I think that puts a lot of emotions into the work that we are doing and makes it more meaningful. I personally feel that. And so tell me, I'm very curious, how does a typical day looks like in the care home?
I know that we actually start our intergenerational activities quite late because our grandfriends are not early risers and need a lot of support in getting themselves ready and having breakfast. So we normally come together anytime from around 10:30. And then we have to fit our day around the children's naps and around everybody's meals and so on. But we normally, we come together at least twice a day, different groups of children, because we have a large nursery now. We have grown from about 4 children up to 80 children. We have children of the care staff, which makes a very big difference as well in the relationships between the care team and those that they are caring for, knowing that the grandfriends are like surrogate great-grandparents for their own children as well. We have a great variety of activities. So we might just go up onto the household and for a spontaneous engagement, or we'll go for one that's been planned. every morning we'll have an opportunity to maybe do an exercise class together. When using music, we will do mutually beneficial exercises. For example, the kind of program will have a cross body, the medium line, so that it stimulates both sides of the body, waving programs, clapping programs, hand strengthening programs. We have a song where we will pass different toys around soft animals chasing each other, and that supports our older grandfriends with the opening and shutting, when to be able to clasp, and the strengthening of the hands, and those kind of automatic responses that as you get older it's harder to maintain, but for the children these are things we're developing. And this opportunity to do this together, it's a gift, really. We'll do gardening together. We have budded reading. Yesterday we had our budded reading program. When the grandfriends become, as it were, teachers, it gives them a new purpose in life. Some of them had never thought they'd have a new profession. And our books, because of the age of our children, won't have words in, but we can still teach a love of literacy. We can teach how to respect the book, how to actually predict what happens next, using words to describe the illustrations. We'll do board games together. We have intergenerational ballet, which is seated for our grandfriends and more active for the children. We have intergenerational poetry, because I have many friends who have skills and they volunteer those skills. So our ballet teacher was actually a soloist at the Royal Sadler's Wells Ballet before he retired. He's 80. And he comes every week, and he has gained a community through coming and being a volunteer with us. It is, I think, the most fulfilling form of volunteering. You can get almost instant gratification. We go to the common together. We have the children in their little perambula. I call them perambulations, you know, like a little bus where the very young ones are seated. And we have a baby and toddler group, which we actually open to the wider community, because the vision of the care home is to become a hub for the local community. We open up the space so that the residents become part of the community. They're not just stuck in front of a TV, but also it means that the local community come in and are at the cafe, and they sit together and we'll have tea together at the cafe.
I think that's really, really sweet, and it brings a smile, at least on my face, and I'm sure a person like me smiling, that means I think half the world would be smiling that way.
We are very lucky that we have the skills of our grandfriends. So we have a French club because there are French speakers in the care home, and they have become the teachers. Which is delightful. Yeah.
So Judith, before coming to the next question from my side, I just wanted to share this. Last year I had written an article after seeing some developments in Japan, which I found very, very interesting. There is a company, or there are companies which are growing, who are providing grandparents on rent. I was so surprised to the extent that, okay, this is the level of development, or this is the way, if the future goes, then definitely everything is going to be outsourced because of the pattern of living, the demographics. The children are not getting to see their grandparents.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what you're doing, I think, is amazing, because I'm sure there'd be a lot of takeaways, because at the young age when you're interacting with your grandparents, which should not naturally happen, especially in a country like India, it was a very, very common phenomena, and still happens to a lot of extent. But in the West, how things are developing in a country like Japan, which I mentioned, is something is going to grow. It's not going to become less. So I guess the programs like Apples and Honey Nightingale is really, really amazing. So coming to my main question was, since UK as such, or England as such, is quite regulated by organizations like CQC and other statutory bodies. Are there any regulations for this intergenerational bonding also? Because eventually you are interacting the children with the elders, and there is an element of abuse which can happen, may not be physical abuse, but a lot of dynamics are at play. So, how does that happen?
There are no regulations as such specifically aimed at intergenerational, because there are very strong regulations around educational settings and safeguarding within those, both in the early years sector and further up in the education sector, because intergenerational programs happen throughout the age ranges. I might just happen to have focused on early years because you wouldn't be able to put a whole school into a care home. But also the CQC regulations are very, very strict. And if you follow those and you observe them, then you will be keeping everybody safe. The responsibility of the children is that of the care staff. They are responsible. We would never leave a child alone with any of the grandfriends, because they are our responsibility, just as our children are never going to be looking after the grandfriends unattended. And we work together as a team. So that partnership is very important. It's not just the planning to ensure that our activities are going to be of mutual benefit, and ensuring that we plan, we deliver, and we develop those programs for the benefit of both age groups, of everyone involved, but it's also the way that you actually are working together, the responsibility you have for each for your particular cohort. And so we know all our staff obviously are DBS, they are police checked, they are, we know they are safe. All the staff in the care home are as well. If there was any resident that they had concerns over, they would not bring them to the session, but we would always try to include people safely as much as we can, because we don't want to make judgments about people at one time in their cognitive and physical development progression. It might be that one of our grandfriends has become less inhibited, if I can put it that way. This would be monitored, but it might be that later on it is safe for them to come, and there is an opportunity to still give them that enrichment. But it's a close partnership, but we have had no issues, and we've been going now for nearly 9 years.
No, that is a concern which I had, and I wanted to ask you.
I mean, there can be issues. There were obviously concerns when we first tried to get insurance, when we first tried to open, and I had some insurance companies saying, yes, okay, we'll insure you so long as they don't touch each other. You can't have relationships without touch. When we think about people who are residents in a care home who have touch because of their physical needs, but they may not have family, they may not have anybody who's going to touch them through affection, who's going to give them that relationship, that sense of being loved and being belonging. It's really important that we can touch, but we do so safely. And I mean, one of the points that was raised was, well, you mustn't leave the children in charge of the care. I mean, as if we would ever do that, in charge of the residents. So it's very carefully planned, and we are very aware. And it's important, though, that we are accessible, that everybody can access the programme, that we're inclusive, and that we're culturally sensitive to the needs of the different residents and children and their families, because we have a very, very diverse community here.
It's very interesting to hear about that. You're working with very diverse community across and everything. So you also established the AHN.
There we go.
Okay.
yeah, it was so exciting to see what was happening and to see the impact, and also to understand that the impact was spread much broader than we had originally thought because of the families that were involved, the relatives as well, who are so anxious. Nobody wants to put their loved one into a care home, and you have that kind of sense of guilt that you are somehow not taking on the responsibility. But what you're actually doing is giving them a new lease of life. You're giving them new purpose. Who would have thought that we would have our educators here? Who would have thought that we would actually have children who otherwise would never experience an older person because their families have had to move because of work and aren't part of a multi-generational community. And here they have a real sense of belonging and purpose and meaning. And so we wanted to share this, but it was even more important that if you're going to put all the effort of getting this to happen, why not make the best impact? So you need some understanding. You need to have some form of training. And also we did want to see this as being an acknowledged expertise, part of the career progression within the care sector and within the education sector. My dream is that every educational organization and every care organization will have somebody who is a lead on intergenerational practice and will be working towards creating these cohesive communities. I was very lucky to find a funder to help us to open Apples and Honey Nightingale Education and Training Centre and to develop accredited qualifications in intergenerational practice. And I also found some fantastic tutors who had the expertise, because that's not my area of expertise, to actually develop training courses. I can actually start it. I knew what I wanted to be taught, but I didn't know how to actually fill the curriculum in that way. And so we opened in 2022, I think, and we have the first accredited level 3 qualifications in intergenerational practice. We have an award, a diploma, a certificate, and a diploma, which can be licensed to practice. We are at the moment, it's not licensed to practice because we would lose the intellectual property, but we are working with NCFE to have it become licensed to practice. But we also realize that not everybody can commit to such a long, year-long, part-time, mainly online course for the diploma, and we wanted to make the training more accessible. So we also have online intergenerational one-day CPD accredited courses, and we also can do them in the evenings, and we also have in-person courses so that you actually might learn the theory, the principles and the practices online and then come and see it in practice. And we're really happy to work in partnership with other organizations that are able to demonstrate the actual activities if people can't get all the way to London. But we did try to make it so accessible, introduce a 1 week immersive course. So we have got a summer school, 5 days of actually coming and living in the care home, where you actually meet the residents, you meet the relatives, you meet the children, you meet their families, you meet the different experts from the different departments, from the care side, the volunteer side, from the therapy side, from the education side. You can actually learn from these experts, and you take part in the intergenerational program itself and do the theory on site. In fact, I can give you the website where you can find all the information.
It's perfectly fine. In fact, we'll put on the website for the people who like to read and understand more about it. And I think it's a wonderful practice in itself. So who typically enrolls in these programs is my curious question to you.
Well, it's a variety of people. I mean, there are people from the care sector, managers and owners of care homes. There are people who are actually looking to themselves develop co-located sites. We have a new one is about to be built. It's just had planning permission in the north of England. That we have educators, people from the education side, not just early years, those who are working in schools, people who are looking at social policy and seeing how, because of the implications on society locally, people who are doing research, urban developers, architects. It's very broad, and quite a lot of people who are looking to change direction in their lives, who are thinking they've reached the pinnacle of the career that they were at, and what do they want to contribute now? What do they think could make a difference? And they see intergenerational practice, they see this creating cohesive communities through intergenerational relationships as being a way that they can then give something back to society.
It's amazing to see the way or the approach of this program. And recently, I was actually supposed to go to Bangalore in India, South India, to set up a care home set up a daycare center within a care home. And the reason why I was approached was one of my seniors from HelpAge India. He had seen a care home in UK, which was again of the Jewish faith, and he was so impressed by the planning, the designing, and the programs that he said, "No, we need to replicate this, or at least get the learnings from what I have seen and try to do something in India." So I can totally relate to the way you have picturized it for us. So really amazing, really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It is. I think it is a fantastic opportunity for us, and even those communities, as you say, that are so used to living in extended families, even they are becoming fragmented because of the need to move for work, and people are living much longer. And so we need to actually find ways of giving purpose there and actually benefiting from those opportunities. And what better way can you do this other than coming together and learning with and from each other and enjoying each other's company? There's so much that we can learn from each other, and we can have fun.
No, it's very well said. And I think this has really summarized the whole thing for us, because we were initially very curious how the whole model works, what are the compliances issue, what can be the challenges. So to summarize the whole thing up, Judith, what would you say are your 3 learnings or key takeaways that you have experienced while being in the setup? Or with it can be something, that you feel the elder care providers or the service care sector people or people who are working with, let's say, with children, can also implement in their own personal practices across the globe.
A big question. And as you know, you can see, I do love talking, so, and I love sharing. I think do not be put off by people who look for problems. Those problems are not there. We can overcome them. There is not an issue about safeguarding, because you just ensure that you have the right processes and policies in place, and people actually implement them. And people are frightened of the challenge and they will scaremonger, but actually you weigh up the benefits and the risks. And my goodness, those benefits certainly outweigh the risks. And there are so many benefits. If people are worried about the cost of bringing people in, of actually implementing such a program, we were working with Scotland, GWT, Generations Working Together in Scotland, and Linking Generations Northern Ireland on a national lottery-funded program called Creating Intergenerational Communities. And we had a social return on investment report on the impact of using the model or the toolkit that we were creating. And the result was that for every £1 that the National Lottery had invested, the profit margin, the investment financial return in social return was £6.9. Yes, it's phenomenal. The initial outlay you need to make, but you will benefit so much on social prescribing, not having to give medication because it's the social prescribing, it's the coming together, the relationships coming together that is going to help you to actually save money on medication that always has other implications on your health. On the benefits on society, because I do believe that children who see the life cycle as a natural phenomenon, aging as a natural thing, are not going to have the same measure of mental health problems as they grow up. They've not been overprotected. They see it as a natural part of life, and they don't see aging as being frightening at all, but rather there are benefits in everything. So that those financial returns should persuade people on social policy who are making policies about urban design and bringing generations together rather than cutting them away. There are so many benefits. And I would just say, go for it, because the benefits, the fulfillment, the happiness, the measure of happiness that it brings should certainly outweigh any other issues.
I think there is a lot of learning from this particular podcast. The subject which we thought is probably a regular subject has actually come out to be a very, very scientific and a technical subject. To be very honest, it is not that simple that I bring in a few children and ask some elderly people to interact. So there is a lot of thought and there is a lot of planning which is involved. So Judith, my last question to you would be, as a country, England, how popular is intergenerational activities, specifically from the British perspective? And since this model has been running now, you're saying, for quite a couple of years, so has it picked up in other care homes also?
Yes, there is a wonderful setting in Chester called the Nursery in Belong. And Belong is the care home, and there's a nursery there, which is a smaller setting to ours, and it's in the centre of Chester. So there are so it's slightly different, which is amazing, which is good that we should have the variety. We are very much a nursing home. They are more a retirement home, which is where people can stay for longer afterwards, but they have independent living. Again, there's the new setting that is about to be built. It's just got planning permission in the north, and the name has just it is Millennium Care are the organisation who are going to be setting it up, and it looks fantastic. And both those have been purposely designed, whereas we actually have adapted a home that was opened in 1906. So it is very different. And when we first opened, we were in a bungalow, but we've extended, and we are now both a bungalow in the garden and in the actual care home. So you can see the difference of being actually in the building itself and being in the garden. The bungalow is in the garden. But there are many, many other projects that are happening within day centres, within community centres, in faith centres, in schools. There's a marvellous school called Downs Hall School in the north of London, in Ilford, where they have for the last 8 years had older people who have got early onset dementia or are suffering from depression, and who the local mental health team have signposted to come to a weekly club, in that nursery, where they are supporting children who have got English as a second language and who maybe need a little bit of more individual work together. And so they've become a team. There are so many different ways. There are projects that are based around art, around gardening, around music, intergenerational choirs. We have set up in England, we have set up recently an organization called Gen All. And that is one that we wish to promote all the intergenerational programs in England, to be a cohesive voice, to be advocates together, and to share practice and promote each other rather than be, challenging each other, because there wasn't that cohesion in England, but now there is. So please do look at the Gen All website. It's got a lovely video around that. But that is slightly different to generations working together in Scotland and linking generation in Northern Ireland, who are much more facilitators. I would say they don't actually deliver programs, but they support others, and they are advocates and work with policy. And so you can see that it is a growing movement. And of course, there are so many different models, as you yourself were saying, like in Japan, there's something called grand nannies, where they try and encourage people who've retired to become, after school carers for children, for parents who are working. And there's home share. So 2 generations where they facilitate safely people to come together, people who are maybe looking for a home that is more cheap because of their work, and others who've got a large home that they feel it would be lovely to have a bit of company. So it is a massive field and an exciting field, and one that should be modelling our unifying working together all over the world.
I think, Judith, it has been absolute pleasure to understand how broad can be this field of intergenerational work. It's not restricted to care homes or nurseries or opening places, to at home, to, you talk about it, and I think it has a scope of expansion. And I think that is what makes it very, very dynamic and very adaptable to various countries. So that is the whole idea of this podcast, to, connect various ideas from various best practices from various countries, and to put it into practice in our own country in India, as we speak about, and other countries that are listening to us. So thank you so much, Judith. Indeed has been a great pleasure to understand all of this from you. And we really, really feel that I think one podcast wouldn't be enough to get the whole grasp of it. So probably we need to do more of it to, continue talking about these things.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for inviting me to share something I'm so passionate about, and to spread the word, which is so important. Please, if you want to come and visit us at Apples and Honey Nightingale, you'll be most welcome. This is an open invitation. Do contact me. We love to share because we know what the benefits are. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on your podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judith. It was an honor to have you for our podcast. And as Mrigna said, that we will not be able to stop ourselves with just one podcast with you, because India is a large country, and the kind of learnings what you have can be not replicated exactly in verbatim, but can be adapted, and that is where we will probably require your inputs in the coming years, because this is something I think very important, and all of us are going to face that aspect of loneliness and isolation, and this is where the activities of intergenerational bonding is going to come in. So really appreciate your taking time out and coming for this show. And with that, I will say thank you. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.